Have you ever come home, seen a shredded pillow or chewed door frame, and assumed your Siberian Husky was being bad, spiteful, or stubborn, when the real reason might be far more honest and important? With their thick silver and white coats, upright ears, bright blue eyes, curled bushy tails, and alert wolf-like faces, Siberian Huskies look wild and dramatic, which makes people quick to misread their intense behavior. But destruction in a husky is often not moral failure at all. It is usually communication, released energy, unmet instinct, frustration, stress, or a very intelligent working dog trying to solve life alone. This breed was built to move, think, persist, and work with purpose, so when daily life feels too small, too boring, too lonely, or too confusing, the house can become the dog's outlet. That is why a ruined shoe does not automatically mean a naughty husky, because the object itself may only be the surface of a deeper problem the dog does not know how to explain cleanly. Before judging the damage, ask what happened first: how long the dog was alone, how much exercise happened, whether the routine changed, what emotions were in the room, and what outlets were missing. If your husky chews shoes after you leave, the message may not be revenge, it may be stress around separation, attachment to your scent, or an attempt to self-soothe during emotional discomfort. A dog that targets the door, crate, or window area may be telling you even more, because location often reveals whether the destruction is about access, panic, confinement frustration, or social isolation. Scratching at the door is rarely a personal insult to the owner, and in many huskies it is simply a physical expression of wanting movement, reunion, or release from a barrier that feels impossible. When the couch gets shredded, people often say the dog went crazy, yet many huskies destroy soft objects because fabric tears easily and gives instant feedback to a body already buzzing with pent-up arousal. Digging is another perfect example, because owners see ruined yards and assume misbehavior, while the husky may be cooling off, creating a resting spot, following a scent, relieving boredom, or exploring escape routes. Siberian Huskies are especially prone to digging because they are hardy outdoor thinkers with strong instincts, and a patch of dirt can become part air conditioning system, part entertainment project, and part self-directed mission. Trash raiding can look rude and impossible, but for many dogs, including huskies, scavenging is rewarding, stimulating, and deeply natural, especially when the environment offers more tempting smells than the day offered challenges. Even stealing household objects can be less about disobedience than curiosity, because a smart husky often experiments with the world using teeth, paws, and problem-solving in ways people do not expect inside a living room. Some destruction happens after explosive zooming, jumping, or grabbing, and that pattern often points to an overfull body, where movement has outpaced self-control and the nearest object becomes part of the energy release. In huskies, exercise is not only about burning miles, because a physically tired dog can still be mentally underfed, and an underchallenged mind will often build its own work out of your furniture. That is one reason this breed gets called difficult, when in reality many huskies are simply brilliant, persistent, and underoccupied, turning boredom into projects because the household has given them no better assignment. Morning destruction and evening destruction can tell different stories too, since one may come from anticipatory arousal and trapped energy, while the other may come from accumulated frustration after an underfulfilling day. The question is never only, how do I stop the chewing, but also, what need would make chewing feel useful, relieving, or interesting enough for my husky to choose it repeatedly? Chewing itself is not the enemy, because chewing can regulate stress, ease teething discomfort, release tension, and satisfy a real biological need, which means the problem is often the target, not the act. Age matters as well, because adolescent huskies often look especially destructive, not because they are disrespectful, but because energy, curiosity, poor impulse control, and confidence all rise faster than wisdom in that phase. And if destruction suddenly appears in a previously stable dog, pain, digestive discomfort, anxiety, or a major environmental change should be considered, because behavior shifts can begin in the body before they show in the room. The clearest clues often happen before the item gets damaged: pacing, whining, scanning, grabbing random objects, intense staring, or looping through the same path as if the dog cannot settle inside itself. One of the biggest human mistakes is thinking that guilty look after destruction proves bad intent, when most dogs are actually responding to your tone, posture, and tension, not confessing a moral crime. A husky lowering the head, squinting, or slinking away when you find the mess is usually reading your reaction, because dogs are excellent at anticipating emotion and poor at understanding punishment after the fact. So scolding long after the damage is done does not teach the correct lesson. It usually teaches that humans become unpredictable around messes, which can increase stress without reducing the original cause. Many huskies also destroy when left with too much access too soon, especially if alone time, room freedom, and calm independence were never built gradually enough for such a sensitive, active working breed. That does not mean the dog is ungrateful. It means freedom without preparation can feel like empty space with no job, no guidance, and too many possible outlets for a restless nervous system. Escape behavior deserves special attention in Siberian Huskies, because this breed is famous for climbing, digging, squeezing, and problem-solving its way out, not out of hatred for home but love of movement and novelty. A dugout fence line may look like betrayal, yet to a husky it can be a puzzle, a scent trail, a response to boredom, or an instinctive answer to confinement that feels emotionally thin. Weather can add another layer, because a husky with energy trapped indoors by heat, storms, or household schedules may channel that pressure into objects when the body still expects more work than life provided. Social needs matter too, since many huskies do poorly with long dull isolation, and a dog that lacks meaningful interaction may try to create sensation, sound, or activity through destruction simply to feel engaged. This is why routine is powerful. Predictable exercise, predictable departures, predictable rest, and predictable enrichment reduce the emotional fog that often sits underneath what owners label random bad behavior. A good departure routine can change everything, because when leaving becomes calm, brief, and familiar instead of emotionally noisy, the husky has less reason to spiral into arousal the moment the door closes. Safe chews, stuffed toys, food puzzles, frozen enrichment, and legal shredding outlets can help enormously, not because they bribe the dog, but because they redirect a real need into a safer target. Huskies also thrive when given jobs that feel breed appropriate, like pulling with a harness, carrying a backpack, scent games, obstacle work, or structured search tasks that make the mind feel usefully employed. Even simple cardboard box destruction, if supervised and safe, can be more helpful than people expect, because it gives the dog a legitimate tearing outlet instead of forcing instinct to hunt for your belongings. Just as important as activity is recovery, since some huskies need help learning how to come down after excitement, and a dog that cannot settle is more likely to turn arousal into damage. Managing the environment is not failure either, because baby gates, tidy floors, closed closets, secure trash lids, and appropriate confinement protect the dog from rehearsing choices you do not want repeated. A crate can help only when it has been built as a calm, safe place, because confinement given too fast to a stressed husky can create more panic, scratching, and escape attempts instead of less. If the pattern looks like true separation distress, with frantic damage focused near exits, non-stop vocalizing, drooling, or self-injury, the issue is emotional panic, not simple boredom, and it needs gentler treatment. Keeping a short behavior journal can reveal far more than memory alone, because time of day, triggers, objects targeted, length of absence, weather, and recovery patterns often expose the real logic behind the mess. It also helps to compare the dog's good tiredness with the dog's bad tiredness, since healthy fulfillment leads to rest, while frustration often leaves the body exhausted but still unable to truly settle. When you return home, do not only inspect the room, inspect the dog, because breathing, posture, eye softness, mouth tension, and activity level can tell you whether the destruction came from panic, boredom, or arousal. The most useful shift is moving from blame to translation, asking not, "Why are you bad?" but, "What made this behavior feel necessary, relieving, or rewarding to my husky in this exact situation?" That mindset does not excuse destroyed belongings, but it does create better solutions, because boundaries work best when they answer the need behind the behavior instead of only punishing the visible result. A husky that gets movement, thinking work, social contact, legal chewing, safe resting space, and gradual independence is far less likely to turn your house into a project site. And once the dog's needs are met more accurately, the home often feels calmer very quickly, because the same intelligence that once found trouble can now be directed into activities that actually satisfy. If destruction remains intense, sudden, or emotionally loaded despite good routines, a veterinarian or qualified behavior professional can help rule out pain, medical changes, and deeper anxiety patterns before they grow harder to reverse. That is especially important with Siberian Huskies, because their dramatic style can make people underestimate distress, when the dog may already be shouting through behavior after smaller signals went unnoticed for too long. Your husky is usually not plotting against the couch, the shoes, or the wall. It is simply using the tools available in the moment to solve a problem the human has not fully seen yet. In other words, destruction is often problem-solving from the dog's side, even if the chosen solution is terrible for your belongings and expensive for your patience. When owners finally understand that, they stop taking the mess personally, and that emotional change alone often improves the relationship enough for the dog to feel less pressured and more readable. Then the husky begins to look less like a rebel and more like what it truly is, a driven, sensitive, clever animal asking for a life that matches the body and mind it was born with. The real goal is not only saving your furniture, but learning to read the need hidden underneath the damage, because once you understand the message, you can start answering it more kindly and more effectively. And that may be the most important truth of all: a Siberian Husky that destroys things is not always being bad, and sometimes it is simply telling you, as clearly as it can, that something important is missing. Another reason a Siberian Husky destroys things is simple underuse of the mouth, because chewing, ripping, carrying, and tugging are not strange accidents in dogs, they are natural outlets that need lawful places to go. If your husky never gets satisfying chews, shredding outlets, or food work that engages the jaw and brain together, the nearest cushion or shoe can become the substitute job. Some owners see this and think the dog prefers forbidden items out of stubbornness, when the truth is often easier. Household objects are available, varied, textured, and emotionally linked to human life. A legal chew in the right moment can prevent a bad decision later, because it gives the body relief before frustration has to search the room for a target. Timing matters here, since enrichment offered after the husky is already spiraling may help less than enrichment offered before the stress wave begins to build in the first place. That is why many successful owners learn their dog's early signs, the pacing, scanning, vocalizing, staring, toy grabbing, and restless wandering that come before destruction becomes visible. Once you can see those early signals, you stop reacting only to the damage and start intervening while the behavior is still soft enough to redirect without conflict. Redirection works best when it feels meaningful, not random, because an intelligent husky quickly learns the difference between a real outlet and a human gesture that does not truly satisfy anything. A frozen food toy, a ripping box, a snuffle game, or a tug session can meet different needs, and choosing the right one depends on whether the dog is stressed, bored, overexcited, or underworked. This is why the same dog may ignore one puzzle and obsess over another, because the body is asking for a specific type of release, not just any object a person labels enrichment. Huskies also destroy more when sleep and downtime are poor, because a wired nervous system loses judgment, impulse control, and flexibility long before the dog looks obviously exhausted to human eyes. A dog that never truly settles can act like it needs more and more activity, when in fact part of the picture is teaching the body how to stop, soften, and remain still. That settling skill does not usually appear automatically in a high-drive breed, and many Siberian Huskies need calm routines, low-stimulation transitions, and environmental help to learn it well. If the house is always noisy, chaotic, cluttered, or emotionally unpredictable, destruction can become the dog's way of discharging tension that has nowhere else to land. The owner's emotional state can matter too, because frustrated, hurried, or inconsistent humans often create a background climate that makes a sensitive, reactive husky even less able to organize itself. This does not mean the owner caused every problem, only that dogs live inside our routines and emotions so closely that small human patterns can shape large canine outcomes over time. Some huskies destroy most right after excitement, not right after boredom, and those dogs often need help with transitions, especially after walks, visitors, play, or anything that raises arousal quickly. An aroused husky coming home from a stimulating outing may look physically exercised, yet still explode into grabbing and tearing because the nervous system is not done processing the excitement. In those cases, the answer is not always more activity, but often a gentler landing, sniffing, chewing, water, distance from triggers, and a predictable quiet place to come down. On the other hand, some destruction appears before activity, especially in the morning, because anticipation itself can overwhelm a dog that already wakes with energy and no clear direction. When the leash, shoes, or door routine create too much emotional charge, the husky may redirect that pressure into nearby objects before the walk even begins. That kind of damage is not the same as separation distress or boredom, and it deserves a different answer: calmer rituals, slower pacing, and less dramatic build-up around departures and outings. Multiple dog homes can add another layer, because some huskies become more destructive when social competition, frustration, or contagious arousal from another dog keeps the whole environment activated. The destruction may still happen in private, but the source can begin socially, with excitement stacking through the day until one dog finally releases it into the room. Resource access matters too, because a dog with too many toys scattered everywhere may become less thoughtful, while a dog given selected, meaningful outlets at the right times often uses them more successfully. Quality and context usually beat quantity, especially with smart breeds, since purposeful enrichment teaches better patterns than a floor full of ignored objects ever will. Many owners are surprised that scent work helps destruction so much, but for a husky, using the nose can be mentally satisfying in a way that changes the whole body after only a short session. 10 good minutes of searching, tracking, or finding hidden food can sometimes do more for peace indoors than a long walk that never truly engaged the dog's mind. This is not because walking is unimportant, but because locomotion and cognition feed different parts of the animal, and both matter deeply in a working breed. It also helps to notice which objects your husky prefers, because fabric, wood, plastic, paper, or doors each tell a slightly different story about texture, sound, resistance, and emotional motivation. A dog that loves tearing cardboard may need lawful shredding, while a dog drawn to door frames may be telling you the issue is access, frustration, or separation rather than pure chewing pleasure. Likewise, a husky obsessed with trash may need stronger food-related enrichment and stricter kitchen management, while a dog fixated on windows may be carrying visual frustration and social alertness. The more specific your observation becomes, the less the dog's behavior looks random, and the more each pattern starts to point toward a practical solution. Progress usually comes in layers, not all at once, because first you prevent rehearsal, then you add better outlets, then you improve routine, then you teach settling, and only then do many homes feel truly easier. During that process, success should not be measured only by whether nothing gets destroyed, but also by shorter pacing, easier recovery, calmer departures, better sleep, and faster engagement with legal activities. Those small improvements matter because they show the husky's internal state is changing, which is what must improve before lasting behavior change becomes reliable. Some dogs need medication support for anxiety or panic, and there is no shame in that, because a nervous system in real distress cannot always learn calmly through routine alone. The goal is not to sedate the personality out of a husky, but to give the brain enough stability that the dog can finally use the healthy skills you are trying to teach. When people stop calling the dog bad and start calling the behavior informative, they often become more patient, more strategic, and far less trapped in anger that solves nothing. The husky feels that change too, because fewer emotional collisions with humans often reduce the very tension that used to fuel some of the destructive episodes. Over time, the same dog that once ripped pillows may begin carrying legal toys, choosing a chew station, settling after activity, or searching for hidden food instead of making its own dangerous game. That transformation can feel dramatic, yet it usually came from meeting old needs in better ways, not from finally proving to the dog who was in charge. A Siberian Husky still needs boundaries, of course, but the most effective boundaries are clear, consistent, and paired with realistic outlets for movement, curiosity, and independence. Without those outlets, rules often feel like blank walls to a clever dog. With them, rules become much easier to follow because the dog has somewhere else meaningful to put its energy. It is also worth remembering that this breed often matures slowly in behavior, so what feels impossible at one age may soften greatly as the dog's nervous system and routines become more stable. That does not mean waiting passively, but it does mean building for the dog in front of you, not for an imaginary easy dog who never had such strong instincts in the first place. If you respect the husky's nature, structure the day well, and stop personalizing every mistake, you often discover that the dog was never trying to ruin your home out of spite. It was trying to move, cope, think, soothe, search, cool down, reunite, escape frustration, or simply survive an empty stretch of time with the tools it had. Seen that way, destruction becomes a message with a body behind it, not a character flaw, and that understanding can completely change how humane and effective your next step becomes. The couch may still need repair, the fence may still need reinforcing, and the trash may still need locking, but your relationship with the dog becomes far more accurate and far less adversarial. And once that relationship shifts, training improves too, because a husky that feels understood is often easier to guide than a husky trapped in repeated cycles of frustration and punishment. Your home gets safer, the dog gets clearer, and the daily atmosphere becomes less about catching mistakes and more about setting both species up to succeed together. That is when the breed's best qualities start to shine again, the intelligence, resilience, humor, athleticism, and surprising sensitivity that were buried under conflict and broken objects. A well-supported husky is still vivid, still expressive, and still very much a husky, but it no longer has to use destruction as its loudest form of communication. So the next time your Siberian husky damages something, pause before calling it bad, and ask what need, emotion, or instinct made that choice feel useful in that exact moment. Very often, the answer will lead you somewhere better than blame ever could, toward a life where your husky does not just obey more, but struggles less.